In September of 1986, an incident occurred in the city of Tacoma where 5 officers, 3 white males, 1 Hispanic male, 1 white female officer, responded to the scene of a large, violent black male, an EDP, emotionally disturbed person, who had violently assaulted a female. They arrived at the scene to find a subject 6 feet 5 inches tall, 230 pounds, armed with a large butcher knife in his dominant hand, armed with a 2-foot club in his less dominant hand. As the officers attempted to array themselves around him in a controlling posture, he began to lash out violently. The responding sergeant, who had drawn his weapon, was approximately 6 feet away when the subject lunged at him with the knife. This officer fired 1 shot from his Beretta service pistol. It was later determined that this round, a 9mm Winchester Silvertip, had struck the subject in the heart. The man appeared to be startled, looked at the officer, and then violently lunged at him again with renewed vigor. And in the seconds that followed, the other 4 officers joined the first in firing. A total of 20 shots were fired before the suspect was neutralized, 8 of them striking the subject. The community, not understanding what a trained policeman knows about the dynamics of violent encounters, felt that it was a gross abuse of law enforcement use of deadly force. They felt that 5 officers at the scene should have been able to control a man with what they perceived as a lesser weapon. Fortunately, all those officers had had the training in the Tula drill. And my recollection, having seen the paperwork, is that at least 3 of them made the statement in their initial reports. It was fresh in my mind from my training how rapidly that man could have closed the distance and killed the sergeant or the rest of us. We knew for this reason it was necessary. Like all of us in the business, I follow the journals. Some of it's crap, some of it's useful. Every now and then you get something that stands out head and shoulders above the rest with the potential to save police lives and police careers. Such an article as this one, titled "How Close is Too Close?" written by Dennis Tueller, Tueller. It appeared in the March 1983 issue of SWAT magazine, which stands for Survival Weapons and Tactics. This landmark article, Tueller demonstrated just how rapidly a suspect with a contact weapon, such as a knife or a club, could close what previously was believed to be intermediate distance with a police officer and execute a lethal technique. Going back to your basic academy training on judicious use of deadly force, you recall 3 elements had to be present for you to fire the service weapon. Ability, the opponent had to have the power to kill or to cripple. Jeopardy, he had to be acting in such a manner a reasonable man would assume he intended to cripple. And third, and most critical in a typical contact weapon assault, opportunity. The opponent had to be close enough to employ the weapon, to employ his power to kill or to cripple. Typically, when an officer uses deadly force on the street and is judged by people who do not begin to understand the actual dynamics of violent encounters, opposing counsel makes it appear that a man 20 feet away with a club or a knife was incapable of harming the officer and should not have been shot until the knife was virtually at the officer's throat. Personally, I've seen men go to prison because they did not have the kind of training that Dennis Tueller made available in this article, and today, thank God, in the videotape. I've seen men who had that training stay out of prison, 5 of them that I believe we can point to, and I believe one of those officers is alive today because of that training. All of us here in this class are instructors. We're familiar with the concept of the oil stain effect. One instructor trains, in this case, a cadre of 8 instructors, each of whom will go back and transmit that training to several hundred officers. And from there, the training spreads and permeates the law enforcement community and reaches those it needs to reach. Tueller's article was published in March of '83. After having read it, I incorporated what I call the Tueller drill and all the LFI courses, which involve 1,000 to 1,500 personnel a year. In 1985, I taught this drill to a cadre of approximately 30 instructors in the Tacoma, Washington area at the Tacoma Police Range, and strongly urged them to adopt the Tueller drill, to use it as a roll call exercise with all their officers. This was done by most of the involved departments, including, I'm happy to say, Tacoma Police itself. Tacoma Police not only incorporated the Tueller drill, but made a training videotape out of it that they made a point of showing to all officers in both recruit and in-service training. This involved role plays as well as the videotape. In September of 1986, an incident occurred in the city of Tacoma where 5 officers, 3 white males, 1 Hispanic male, 1 white female officer, responded to the scene of a large, violent black male, an EDP, emotionally disturbed person, who had violently assaulted a female. They arrived at the scene to find a subject 6 feet 5 inches tall, 230 pounds, armed with a large butcher knife in his dominant hand, armed with a 2-foot club in his less dominant hand. As the officers attempted to array themselves around him in a controlling posture, he began to lash out violently. The responding sergeant, who had drawn his weapon, was approximately 6 feet away when the subject lunged at him with the knife. This officer fired one shot from his Beretta service pistol. It was later determined that this round, a 9mm Winchester Silvertip, had struck the subject in the heart. The man appeared to be startled, looked at the officer, and then violently lunged at him again with renewed vigor. And in the seconds that followed, the other 4 officers joined the first in firing. A total of 20 shots were fired before the suspect was neutralized, 8 of them striking the subject. The community, not understanding what a trained policeman knows about the dynamics of violent encounters, felt that it was a gross abuse of law enforcement use of deadly force. They felt that 5 officers at the scene should have been able to control a man with what they perceived as a lesser weapon. Fortunately, all those officers had had the training in the Tula drill. And my recollection, having seen the paperwork, is that at least 3 of them made the statement in their initial reports. It was fresh in my mind from my training how rapidly that man could have closed the distance and killed the sergeant or the rest of us. We knew for this reason it was necessary. In the coroner's inquest that followed, their testimony reinforced that. The training that they had had was introduced, and now the coroner's jury understood what the officers had understood. As you watch the incident unfold in the press and the clippings from the Tacoma newspaper, both the editorials and the news, you see the mood go from a situation where the public believed that a firing squad had executed a man because he was black, to a situation where the media, where the public, and where ultimately the coroner's jury itself, which included black members, realized and stated these officers did what they had to do. They had no other choice under the circumstances. Those officers were found to have been justified by the coroner's jury, and in that moment, a situation occurred where those 5 officers, in my opinion, were saved from standing trial and possibly going to prison. That training undoubtedly kept the sergeant from being stabbed to death by that suspect and very possibly kept other officers at the scene from being killed. We contrast that with situations like New York versus Frank Magliato in New York City, Manhattan Superior Court in 1984. Magliato was a citizen with a gun permit, attacked for the 4th time that night by a violent junkie with a long history of criminal assaults who was armed with a 2-foot club. Magliato fired, his bullet struck and killed the suspect. It was testified in court that that man was within 2.08 seconds, based on subsequent tests, of crushing Magliato's skull. Magliato, with the jury out of the room, was asked by the judge, "Did you know that at the time the weapon fired?" Magliato answered no, and the judge said, "Because you did not know that, it was not part of your mindset, it was not part of your decision-making process, the jury will not know this." And a jury that didn't know this kid was 2 seconds away from death found him guilty. Guilty indeed of depraved murder. The New York State Supreme Court reduced that to a conviction for manslaughter. He remains, however, in Dannemora State Penitentiary, essentially for no other crime but being unable to justify what was clearly a justifiable shooting. And I'm very pleased to have with us today the man who, in my opinion, is responsible for saving at least 5 police careers and at least 1 police life, Sergeant Dennis Tuller, Salt Lake City Police Department.
Thank you, Masaad. Hearing those kinds of things are very, very gratifying. I suspect that any of you as training officers wonder sometimes if what you do or teach is ever going to really make the difference, and it gives one a good feeling inside to know that, in at least this case, something did make the difference.
The idea, pardon me, for this didn't just come to me in a flash of brilliant light at 2 o'clock one morning.
It was a discussion not unlike this with a bunch of other officers after some firearms training. They wanted to know, well, what if, this guy has a knife or a club or an axe or a baseball bat?
But he's a good distance away. He's across the room, 15, 20, 30 feet away, what most of us would presume was out of the danger zone. We'd have plenty of time to draw our pistol and engage. So we tried that. We set up some demonstrations and had some officers of different sizes and heights and weights.
I brought my own little super safe knife here. This is the sharpest thing my department will let me carry. But I want to use this to help make the point. We can do a little demonstration here. And I had no idea when I first put that article in print that it was going to receive the attention that it did. But obviously, there's a big question out there in the minds of a lot of people.
We sometimes underestimate the danger that we face in the hands of a man armed with a knife or similar weapon.
Here's a simulation that we sometimes set up. We'll have an officer stand here simulating the suspect armed with his trusty knife and check to make sure that it's not loaded before you do anything. Okay. And then we'll pace off about 7 yards, because that's the traditional training distance that we're so used to using. And that's how this all came up. We were talking about it. I said, well, let's find out. Let's see how fast, John Doe average can cover 7 yards properly motivated. And we'll give it a try here and find out. So have you stand right here, and we'll pace off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the bandit should still be in camera range. What I'm going to do is get out my stopwatch. If any of you have stopwatches on your wrist or handy there, what we want you to do is start the watch when you see him move. I'll start my watch, simulating that would be my reaction to draw. Now, first of all, what you do is you lay this out, set something up like this.
You can do that. The beauty of this is you don't have to do it outdoors or on the firing range. You can do it anywhere you like.
And ask your officers now, how many of you, if you were this far away from a suspect brandishing a knife or similar weapon, and you were armed with your trusty, whatever your agency allows you to be armed with, how many of you would feel that you had pretty good control of that situation? Are you in danger from this guy, 21 feet away? How does that look to you guys? And you can see the problem. How's that going to look to a jury after everything's said and done and they get out with the tape measures and yardsticks and videotape of the scene and take all the pictures? And it's been my experience training that many officers will look at this and say, yeah, that's no sweat. I mean, he can't touch me with that yet. And the perception is that you've got to be just beyond arm's length before that's a danger, and that you've got plenty of time to draw your weapon and fire and hit this guy. Well, let's find out. So we're going to react to you, okay? That eliminates reaction time, that adds in the reaction time. I'll start my watch, all right, when you move. You guys do the same. Watch him and stop the watch when he makes contact on me with the knife. Okay. I've got 1.5 exactly.
1.44.
Okay. 1.6.
1.7.
Okay. That is. Thank you. You did that with great enthusiasm, don't you think? That's what we found. Typically, we had several different people try it, and we timed them, and we watched it, and that's exactly that's what we came up with. Was about 1.5 to 2 seconds, starting from a dead stop and covering that 21 feet, 7 yards. Now, you've been doing some firearms training here. What do we give you as a good par time to draw and fire a controlled pair to the subject at 7 yards? About 1.5 seconds, yeah. So, and then you can set this up and mock it up with dart pistols if you like and see how fast the officer can fire his dart gun and if he hits the bandit. But what happens is, let's say that you are really quick and you can draw in draw and fire in 1.2 seconds. Well, how close does this put the guy with the knife? Probably about one step away from cutting your throat. The other mistake we sometimes make is, and we're all products of our environment, and we've learned from watching television, what's going to happen when you shoot this guy? Let's assume, first of all, that you can draw quickly and you react, and you hit him solidly once or twice in the chest. What's going to happen? Is he going to disappear in a pink mist? It's unlikely, based on the experience I've seen. Some people, when they are hit solidly, stop immediately. Others don't recognize their hit for many, many seconds. So that's another consideration. There's got to be some time allowance for your bullet to have an effect. The stopping effect is unlikely to be immediate. So you want a cushion, okay? Well, with that in mind, we started thinking, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Anything come to mind? What you can see some guy brandishing a knife, and he's across the room, a good 25, 30 feet away. You're armed with a pistol. What's one thing you can do?
Draw and cover.
Draw your weapon immediately. Immediately. If you will do nothing other than that. Now, and department policies vary, you know, and some departments go so far as to have officers write lengthy and triplicate reports every time they draw their weapon out of the holster. But that kind of consideration should be secondary to your walking away from a lethal confrontation and going home at night. If, you know, you have to be aware of what your policy and procedures are, but I can't imagine anyone getting too upset with you for having your weapon in your hand in the face of a deadly threat. And we just demonstrated to you that a man on unbroken ground inside of 30 feet is easily a deadly threat if he's armed with any kind of a weapon that could do you serious bodily injury. So get your gun out. That, well, what does that do first of all? Okay, it cuts your time by a full second at least, assuming you are reasonably well practiced. But the time it takes you to get the gun from here. So if he starts moving now, you don't have that draw time, reaction time. If you have to start firing, you can hit him while he's still several feet away from you, again allowing some time, hopefully, for your rounds to have some effect. Now, what else does that do, drawing the weapon and getting it out in your hand? Okay, intimidation is the word that was mentioned here. Whether it's intimidation or one-upsmanship or whether, deterrence might be a better way to put it. But the idea that you're saying to him, he's got this knife and making a lot of noise about it. If you draw a baton or a flashlight or drop into a karate stance and show this guy that you know what you're all about, I think you may be challenging him to a fight. If, on the other hand, and you've all heard the joke, and you can fill in your own blank about the parties involved, it's just like a stupid so-and-so to bring a knife to a gunfight. And that's kind of the message you're giving this guy. You say, well, that's a very nice knife, but, full house of 638s beats a knife if I do the right thing at the right time. And what you're doing is you're giving this guy an opportunity now to back off. You're giving him what might even be referred to as a face-saving way out. He may be trying to put on a show for his friends. He may be drunk. He may want to impress his girlfriend with how tough he is. And if you challenge him with some lesser degree of force, there is a better than even chance that he'll call your bluff. It's just psychologically, him wanting to prove his own machismo. But if you draw your pistol, point it at him, tell him to stop, drop it, don't move, or whatever, with whatever expletives you would normally add in a situation like that. Now you've given him another option, haven't you? And you've given him an option where nobody's going to call this guy, a coward, or paint yellow stripes on his back, or say nasty things about him behind his back if they see him throw down his knife in the face of your gun. I mean, that's the point here. You're giving this guy an option that maybe he hadn't considered before. Maybe he didn't really believe you'd use that gun. And if you keep it in your holster, he may continue to believe that. He may also continue to believe that he can beat you with a holster. But if the gun's out and in your hand, much less likely that he'll challenge you at that point. What's one thing you want to do in the face of deadly danger if you see it coming soon enough? Okay, something about your environment and what's around you. Cover. Okay, cover. Put something between you and your attacker. Now, we often relate to cover and think about cover in the sense of stopping bullets and the difference between cover and concealment. The cover we may be talking about in this case may not necessarily have to be hard cover, the kind of stuff that we would assume would stop gunfire. But what does cover do for you in a case like this? Well, those garbage cans, trash, furniture. Okay, what does that do for you in a case like this? Exactly. That's the key principle. It buys time, because now this guy doesn't have a straight line shot at you on unbroken ground. If he's going to come at you, he's got to come over the tops of things. He's got to trip over things, push things out of the way, giving you an opportunity again. Get your pistol out, back off, challenge him, give him commands, give him some options. Maybe If you're standing right next to the door and he's stumbling through the furniture, knocking over chairs, maybe you've got another option. Maybe you don't have to shoot. Huh? Maybe you can walk out the door and close it and, you know, call all your buddies. You want to keep your options open. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about with cover. Another thing that comes up in this business of cover and knives, and so this question almost always comes up, and it will come up probably in your class. What if he throws the knife? Okay, what if he throws the knife? Anybody here done any knife throwing? Okay. I have seen some people who can scare you to death with what they can do with a knife. My personal experience is extremely limited, but in studying this subject, I get the impression that it's rather like, you know, if you practice long enough, you can walk up the stairs on your hands. And if you practice long enough, there's some people who can learn to throw a knife pretty accurately. As a general rule, it's a gallery trick involving knowing the weight of the knife and the distance to the target and how many times it's got to flip over before it hits. That's not to say that that's not a danger, because even if this guy's no expert, if he throws his knife and it hits me like that, I'm not going to be too excited about the result. All right? Or if he throws maybe a monkey wrench, maybe a crowbar. That's another reason for using cover. He may try to throw it when he sees that you've got the upper hand, and he, you know, hauls off and lets fly at you. If you've got something between you and him, and that may save a big divot in your forehead. And this business of stepping back, for example, if someone is about to advance on you with a knife and you don't have anything between you and him, maybe as you draw, as he lunges or whatever, you step back as you draw. All right? Just that one step right there gains me an additional 3 to 4 feet. And maybe a quarter of a second. A little bit of time for me to get the gun out, hit him, and hope that there'll be some impact effect. Some people would contend that maybe we ought to practice continuing firing as you move backwards. Well, that can be risky depending on what's behind you and losing your balance. But that one big step back as you draw buys some time and some distance. Other options obviously include moving laterally. If you're already backed up against the wall and he's coming right on top of you and you know you can't beat him to the draw because he's as close as we are here, then that's where some other physical skills, martial arts techniques and things like that come into play, where as he lunges you want to step aside, move away, step to one side or the other, control the hand with the knife and either attempt to disarm him at that point or control the knife while he tries to cut you up, and then maybe draw your pistol and engage him. Because that's what pistols are for, is stopping fights. And whether your pistol stops the fight because you pull it out and point it in his general direction, tell him to drop it, and he stops, that's okay. Fine with me. No shooting review boards, no long extended reports to write. But if you have to use it, you want to put yourself in the best position both tactically and morally and physically to resolve and handle the problem. And I would commend these techniques to you. I think you should practice them, work with them, and again, as Masaad mentioned, make sure your officers are aware of how dangerous a man armed with an edged or blunt weapon can be at what would appear to be long range. That mindset may make all the difference, both in your physical survival on the street and your survival of problem number 2 in the classroom. Thank you.
The video training is good. Interactive role-play training that becomes a part of the officer's experience is better. I'm going to urge that you do this with every single one of your officers. And the way we do it at LFI is this. We break you up into groups of 3. Obviously those with recent leg injuries are exempted. We'll have each of you take at least one turn playing each of 3 roles. The knifer can either use a rubber knife like this or simply the tip of the index finger. Obviously, we're not going to use real weapons in any case. He will pace off to 7 yards. And as Dennis said, on his signal, because in real life the knifer doesn't have to react to someone else's signal, the officer has to react to his self-initiated assault. When he lunges forward, the next man, the timer, will start the time. He will stop the time when the knife touches the third man, the defender. The defender will stand his ground, an empty hand, no prop weapons, ask himself how rapidly he could draw, whether or not, like a Star Wars phaser pistol, is going to instantly stop the man, or whether, like the Tacoma incident, the guy's going to take a round in the heart and keep going until he's hammered into the ground. When this man starts the lunge, the time starts. When he touches, it stops. When you're playing the role of the knife man, don't do like this. Don't go. In real life, they're going to come through you like a steamroller. Run past him full speed and touch as we go by. And the martial artists in the crowd, no palm heel strikes, okay? For obvious reasons, make sure you have a clear path and can steer for the open sea and don't run into another interactive team doing the same on the other side. What I want you to do after that, designate one man in each three-man team as the record keeper. He will take a record of the height, weight, age, and sex of each of the participants and how long it took them to execute the technique. When the crew is all back together, have each recorder read them all aloud so they go into the notes. Remember, a policeman's notes from his training are discoverable evidence in court on both sides. He now has, if there are 8 men in the crew, 8 men in the shift, he now has in his training documentable that he's seen 8 different men of different height and weight and strength and speed and muscle tone execute this technique. We've seen people do it in a second flat. We've seen the ones who insisted on doing it with leg injuries still do it in 2 seconds from 21 feet. And we find, as Dennis did, the average person does it in about 1.4 seconds and change. Remember also with a long extended weapon, such as a long bludgeon, because you have an extra arm's length that cuts off one step and the time is going to be even more rapid than that. And once the momentum is underway, once the man has overcome stasis, it will not be proportionally longer. Okay, if he's 40 feet away, it's not going to take 3 seconds double the other time. It's going to take about 2 seconds and a little bit of change, because once his momentum is going, it gains at a disproportionately rapid speed. We'll ask you gentlemen to do that now, and then when you go in a court, if they try to do to you what they did to Frank Magliotto, you and any officer you're responsible for can say, "No, Your Honor, the reason I shot that man 20 feet away was because in my training I knew I was a second and a half from death. And I knew that because of my training. I did it to another man. In my training, another man did it to me. In my training, I stood back so I can see the forest for the trees and watched another man do it to another man. And by God, you can replicate that with the jury in the deliberation room so long as they know what they have to do when they're secluded in there. And I believe if you carry through Dennis's training, you may also have some people who have you as well as Dennis to thank for saving their careers and their lives. Thank you, gentlemen. Stay safe.
1.5 seconds. 1.6 seconds.
The fellows are doing right now I call a suicide in progress drill. If you look downrange, you'll see each of the active shooters is facing the target, and directly behind him is a man from the other relay. The man behind him is the voice of the target. The officer in this scenario has been called to the scene of a suspicious prowler in a backyard. He finds a man with a weapon in his belt. When he challenges the man advises him, "Get back, I'm planning to commit suicide." Now the officer has got to do several things at once here. He has drawn his weapon and he's covering his target. At the same time, he's got to do a verbal crisis intervention with the suicidal subject, and has already been trained that a suicidal subject can easily turn the homicidal impulse outward. Now, what we're doing here is scoring them on 2 things. First, if there is a signal of the whistle indicates the suspect has gone for the gun. I expect the officer to have at least 1 solid hit within the first second. The officer will have to have a total of at least 2 solid hits inside the 8 ring, or I judge him dead. If he doesn't have 1 solid hit in the 8 ring, by the end of 1 second, I judge him dead. The second half of the judgment involves his skill in verbal crisis intervention. And this will come at the end of the exercise when, both having monitored the dialogues myself and having discussed it with the suicide suspect role players, we determine whether or not the officer had been compassionate enough and used sound scientific and psychological principles in bringing the suspect down from his homicidal aggression height, or if in fact he intentionally or otherwise said something that might have antagonized a real man in that situation to fire. What we're doing here is conditioning the officer to think and mentally process a great deal of information, while at the same time being ready on an instant's notice to fire a fatal shot if it becomes necessary.
You know, I mean, I can't let this one down. Well, you still got yours.
Right, that's all right. Yeah, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt anybody but me.
See, the problem is we don't know that, you know, and well, department policy and everything, you know, I can't let you have your gun on your person like that while I've got one in my holster. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. Cause that
Why
way
don't you just go back to your car and forget about it?
No, we can't go back and forget about it.
You'd love to. Neither one of us came here to get hurt. Let's keep it that way.
I think you're full of crap.
I think you'd love to shoot me,
I
wouldn't
would
you?
love to shoot anybody.
Yeah, you look like it. I'm looking down the barrel of your gun, and you don't want to love to shoot somebody?
This is because I don't want to be looking down the barrel of yours.
You came here to kill me,
I
man.
didn't come here to
Why don't
kill
you just
anybody.
take off? I'll kill myself.
What do you want to kill yourself for?
Hey, why don't you not to be so damn nosy?
Look, I got called out here. I've got no choice.
I didn't call you. Why don't you take off?
The lady inside did. You live around here somewhere? You here visiting?
Why don't you go talk to the lady inside?
What are you doing back here?
I'm trying to mind my own business.
With a gun in a stranger's backyard?
Hey, man, this is America. I got a gun, okay? I ain't going for it.
Yeah, but this isn't your property. What are you doing back here?
Maybe I was just walking by.
You walking by this gal's house at 3 o'clock in the morning in the backyard?
Why don't you just go ahead and do what you came here to do?
I am. I'm talking to you. I'm trying to
No, you came here to waste me.
You'll notice they keep changing their hand positions. The reason is, at this point, they've already been 11 minutes into it, and a great deal of fatigue has set in. We show them a hand change technique that allows perhaps 80 to 90% of the cramping on the primary gun hand. We'll demonstrate that this pistol is unloaded. When the primary hand begins to cramp, it's no trick at all to simply change hands and alleviate 80 to 90% of the cramping. Now, of course, a real-life suicide in progress intervention can well last a couple of hours or longer, particularly if the officer doesn't have his handheld communications with him. Now, here we're normally cutting it off at about 15 minutes, which gives the involved officer a good preview of how in just a relatively short amount of time the cramping can occur, the physical fatigue that will impair the mental judgment process as well. Again, the easiest way to do it is practicing in front of a mirror a few times with your young students, your new guys. The first few times, have them actually look the gun into the holster with one hand, okay, just to establish the mental coordinates. You got to walk before you can run. Okay, from there, you want them able to be addressing the danger, still stay up, still maintain a visual scan while they safely holster the weapon in one hand. Among other things, it's the mark of a professional, and for a number of tactical reasons, it can keep the officer from getting jumped in a crowd situation or an off-duty situation. Okay, the theory is neat. In theory, while this hand is ejecting, this hand is already going for the spare ammo. In practice, how many of you already this week have dumped the speed loader and the rounds didn't go all the way in? How many sometime this week went to do an eject and found rounds laying here and not all the way out of the cylinder? How many sometime in your life have done this and found old Mr. Shell casing stuck right under the ejector starfleet, which will really make you think? Okay, these are all problems that you can trace to a reloading technique that was good in its day, but it has been pretty much bypassed. For instance, a lot of you still come from departments where the budgets are such, you train with 38s, but the round you're carrying on the street is 357. Now, you know, as instructors, the 357 case is a tenth of an inch longer. You know, every time one of those 38s goes off, a little bit more dirt and a little more erosion begins in the chamber area in front of that. Now, when the 357 goes in a tenth of an inch deeper, instead of the 15,000 units of pressure that we normally get with a 38 target load, about 33,000 units case right into that erosion. You know, get up like this and nothing happens. How many have had that experience? Okay, the worst time for that to happen obviously is when you really need the gun refilled at a high rate of speed. Once you've gone to this technique, as you bring it down, the gun does not want to go vertical. Now, this technique was all right back in the early FBI days when you were reloading out of pouches or out of your pocket. I remember in those days you were taught, some of you older guys, to snap the rounds in with your thumb to make sure they're fully seated. Well, today we use speed loaders. Speed loaders work with gravity, and gravity don't go this way. Gravity goes this way, so we've got to have the gun vertical. In the FBI reload, there's only two ways you can get the gun vertical. Bend way forward, which now completely blocks your view of the danger scan, or turn your hand over like this. Now do this as a classroom exercise. Take your left hand, turn it palm out, thumb down, and tell me how natural that's going to be for you or your officer to do under stress. With speed loaders, we think we've got a better way. So far in the past 8 or 9 years that we've been teaching, well, longer than that, more than 10 years that we've been teaching it, seems to solve the problems. We call it the stress reload. Okay, what you're going to do is you fired the last round, you're preparing to reload, you're going to pop the cylinder exactly the way you normally would. But now we rock the gun up and bring the gun right out of the firing position, bring the web of the hand up under the hemisphere area. This allows the thumb to do two things. The thumb now is clear of the ejector rod so it doesn't block it. The thumb is up here. And secondly, the thumb is holding the cylinder all the way out of what's called the window of the frame, because otherwise it can start to rock back in here, blocking ejection and preventing speed reload. Okay, from here, this hand is now in this position. just flows right straight up and with the fingers pointed away from you and guided by the barrel so it can't miss. Pow, one sharp slap. Now we pause briefly here. Consider the ejection problems. Okay, you've got, let's say this hand is creating the resistance of the jammed shells that are platformed inside the chamber. Okay, take your right hand like this. See with the tip of your left thumb if you can possibly push that down. Pretty hopeless? What's the one way you're going to get it down with the left hand? Try that. Make sense? Okay, the complaint you'll get from some of your students is going to be, but if the shells are stuck, I could cut my hand. Well, consider the alternative. Now we take the speed loader. One of the big mistakes you see is the guys particularly with the HKS unit, is the guys grabbing it by the little handle here, little charger handle. Folks, that ain't a handle. That's, in this case, it's a charger. In the case of the HKS, it's a release knob. People who grab it like that are very likely to wind up holding an empty speed loader and have 6 rounds. Grabbing it like this around the body of the speed loader will work, but it'll usually work best if you can look down and index at least a couple of rounds. Survival instinct does not want you looking at your speed loader. Survival instinct wants you looking at the danger. And then go. You've released it, let go of it. It's going to fall. Now where are the hands here? Right in position for the dominant hand to rotate back onto the firing grip. Where is the support hand? Base of the thumb closes. Where now are the hands? Right back in position. It's a smooth flowing movement. Okay, and at a reasonable amount of speed, with all the stress proofing built in, it should look something like this. Now theoretically, you could train as one man here who is very good with a gun has, and do it with the left hand. The problem with that is, unless you're naturally ambidextrous or unless you literally train daily, under stress, the body's survival instinct wants the dominant dexterous hand to be performing dexterity functions. And you wind up, if you try to do it with a non-dexterous hand, unless you practice it literally daily, you're going to wind up, in the words of my friend Ray Chapman, looking like a monkey having a meaningful relationship with a football. Well, it's no trick with an auto pistol to keep it in the primary hand. Indeed, you should, to avoid fumbling and overhandling. That's because all the weak hand has to do is take one relatively large object and insert it into one relatively large receptacle. But what you've got to do with a speed loader, gentlemen, is insert 6 tiny cylindrical objects in a 6 exactly sized holes. And that's sort of like doing a dexterity test, for your job capability function. So again, the main key to this for the night speed reload is Kubik's technique, fingertips ahead of bullet noses. Now, the proper type of speed loader carrier, can I have you come forward here? This is the Rogers design, now made also by Safari. Okay, you've got a number of advantages with it. First off, shown in profile, because 3 rounds will lie on the inside of the belt and 3 on the outside, it's no bulkier than the old style dump pouch. Second, notice it's set wide apart. Of all the men who ever designed carriers for speed loaders, Phil Rogers was the only one who was also a master revolver shot and understood what the human dynamics were. The hand, it's open on both sides. The hand comes down like this, and work your own technique, but for me what works is the thumb and the middle finger, which are the 2 strongest digits on the hand, go through on the open side, grab the body of the speed loader, the index finger pops the strap. When it comes out, the thumb is holding it automatically in position for that Kubik type reload. What you've got with the fingertips ahead of bullet noses is the seam from behind. This is one good way to practice with it. Practice the speed loading behind your back. Fingers touch the end of the cylinder, light jiggle. The one-time fight or flight reflex helps you do something. And we're in. You'll find also under stress, something you can automatically do by feel is going to actually, under pressure, become more of an autonomic response and work more naturally for you than if you were trying to do it by sight. How many of you guys with the 45 autos have found that to be true with your mag changes? Yeah. The ones you do by feel are faster than the ones you do by sight. Yeah. Okay, what we're going to do is have the wheel gunners practice this. Now, the way to have your guys practice the new technique at home is to take something like a handkerchief or a rag and tie it through the top strap, through the part of the gun where my fingers are now. This prevents the cylinder from closing. See, our problem with dry firing is that even if you're using dummy ammo, that tends to migrate. Live rounds get in with your dummy ammo and you blow up your living room, or dummy ammo gets in with your live rounds and you wind wind up with a clicker on the street when you don't need it. Go ahead and use the live ammo, but secure the gun so the cylinder can't close. The reason is our minds are programmed load and fire, load and fire. And just like a lot of us read our police magazines sitting on the crapper, a lot of us practice our reloading and dry firing in front of the television. And many American televisions have died in the name of police marksmanship. We know that the problem in reloading the revolver is not opening and closing the cylinder. So we can get by without that. We can start with the cylinder open. What's the trick? Getting the 6 little guys into 6 little holes. Have the officer simply secure the weapon and just practice. And while he's watching football that afternoon, there's no way that gun can accidentally discharge. By the time that afternoon is over, these movements will have become an autonomic response for him. Okay, for a long time we've been training left-handed cops to simply flip the gun into the right hand and do a right-handed man's speed limit. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. And this class is about typical. 1 man out of 8 is a southpaw. Okay, now I'm not dexterous enough to do it because I am naturally right-handed, but the left-handed technique is actually a tad faster if that happens to be a dominant hand. You've begun in this position. What you're going to do is go thumb and thumb, like this. With a Colt, it would be thumb and thumb. Up to here, pop the cylinder. Now again, the weak hand, which in this case is the right hand, is grabbed around the front. You can do it around the frame. It's going to be a little more natural, frankly, if you take it around the front of the trigger guard. Got it around front, the left hand comes up, and again, guided by the barrel, pow, 1 sharp slap. Brings it right in, let the butt touch your body to index to make sure it's down. Left hand takes the speed loader, we insert, let it fall away. The dominant hand comes back onto the grip. Now the fingertips of the weak hand close, and again, come back into a two-handed firing pattern. For brief commercial announcement, both techniques are illustrated in my book, Stress Fire, and in John Winokur's book, Master Tips.
Available.
You've got to remember in police survival training as opposed to competition training that the barricade is not meant to be a support for marksmanship. The function of barricade shooting is to replicate the use of hard cover that keeps you from being hit by the opposing fire. For example, many of the techniques that are used in competition would get you killed if the target was shooting back. Here's the technique. You might want to see it from the side a little bit that we use at the Bianchi Cup. Possibly from the side here and then a target side view. At the Bianchi Cup, we start with our palms shoulder high on the wall, and on the signal, we have 5 seconds to draw and fire 6 rounds at the target. We'll come up on the ball of the opposite foot, bear the weight on the near side leg, bring both hands outside the wall, and the back of the hand now rides up and down the wall, allowing a very rapid recovery from recoil for an accurate sight. I'm going to stand right here where I am. I'm going to ask the cameraman to come around in front of the deactivated SIG P220. I'll tell him when he's in line with the target that I'm aiming at. A little more. A little more, that's good. Oh, I'm sorry, about 1.5 inches to the cameraman's left. Okay, right there you're seeing what the target sees. Most of my head, most of my brain, most of my chest, and a good part of the vital upper spine and central nervous system. The targets at Bianchi Cup start back. We do 200 different ones of us every year to compete there. Similarly, a technique that works well in training on paper targets can cause you some severe problems with armed men on the other side of your weapon. When you bring the cameraman to here or possibly to here, we'll demonstrate the rollout technique. Now, one of the rationales of the rollout is it keeps you away from the wall. If, for instance, I was searching a building and there might be a suspect on the other side, if I came up in a position here, he could grab my weapon and disarm it. In a situation like that, I'll use the rollout. But I don't like using the rollout for all types of cover. Rollout is normally 2 steps back behind the cover. Get up into a firing position from here when you're concealed from the danger, and roll out to see what's happening, scan the area, and you're instantly prepared to fire. Let's see what the problem is with that from a target's eye view. Cameraman, in front of the deactivated pistol, please. The moment I emerge to engage, I no longer have cover. My head is exposed, the heart is exposed, the spine is exposed. Here I'm safe. If I come out to scan and engage, I'm not. And if he knows that this is where I must come, and he's prepared to shoot anyone who enters this area, I have to scan this entire area to see who and what is there. I have to find them. I have to identify them as friend or foe. I have to make the decision, will I fire or will I not? All he has to do is drop the hammer. The LFI technique is designed for maximum cover while still allowing you to be able to hit your target. opposed to maximum use of the barricade as a support for center X match-winning hits. First, same side foot. Right foot on a right roll, left foot on a left roll. This means when the body hits, there's a felt index that automatically positions most of the torso in behind cover. The second index is knuckles face barricade. With the hands on the outside of the barricade, I have to come out this far to follow and expose this much of my head. See how much farther back I can come with the knuckles here. The final demonstration is aim over nose. Again, here, if my left eye happens to be dominant, my entire head is exposed from behind a wall that was here. If the right eye is dominant, 50%. If I turn the head, almost the entire brain is concealed behind the target. A target side view, I think, will show that better. Same side foot, knuckles face barricade. Now with the deactivated SIG, if the left eye happened to be dominant, this much brain would be exposed. Conventional technique, right eye dominant, this much would be exposed. But now with the turn of the head, if I pivot in behind cover, I have you, and you have very little of me. Same side foot, knuckles face barricade, aim over nose. Won't win you matches, but if you're in a situation where something shoots back, I would offer it for your consideration. Thank you. I see this enables you to shoot effectively. It's also giving you absolute maximum cover. Is this something you can take back to you guys? Okay, the trick is changing hands. Somebody hand me a shotgun and we'll work on the hand change. Okay, to change hands, it's simply the old military hand exchange. Okay, now don't try to do it like this, coming back, or you're going to lose control of the muzzle. What you're doing here, the rear hand comes forward first. It's 1, 2, 3. Go back up. Okay, again to change hands. Okay, on a barricade, and the only time you'll probably ever have to do this in real life is going to be in a combat shotgun match, because in real life you don't, on a narrow barricade, shoot over one side and then around the other. Okay, but to maintain actual cover, the technique would be 1, 2. You all can see why we're not going to do that live fire on this range. Now still smooth, but a little faster. Go! This time quick. Ready, go! 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 Anybody see any problem firing left side barricade? All right. Okay, we're going to work with now is the speed crouch technique from shooting from over low cover. It's the same technique we were using the other day with a pistol. We actually developed it for the shotgun and it works great. What you're doing here, again, we've got to control that massive recoil, so we're going to make the lower legs become a spring system. Feet go as wide apart as they possibly can. You want to get the buttocks as close as you can to knee level. The shoulders have got to be well forward. You try to do this one sitting upright, fellas, you're going for a fast ride. Better hope you got a single shot shotgun. If you get your full auto Daewoo assault shotgun, your field of fire is going to be about like a rainbow. I don't want to be on that particular range when you all do that. With the shoulders forward, what you're going to see for a recoil pattern is the body snaps back because the lower legs have become V springs. But get down low. Don't try something like this. That's not going to fly for you. Deep, wide apart, and deep low, lean into that shotgun. Use the pectoral vest if you want to and just look over it, and what you're going to see is the buckshot ripping the target to pieces. Going to start you with a single shot first after you dry fire just to make sure that you've got it right. Because if somebody's got it wrong, they are going backwards, and I'd rather they not have a loaded Benelli in their hands at that moment. But you're going to be surprised at the recoil recovery. Okay, it allows you to utilize low cover, get into it and out of it quick at a very high rate of speed, beyond anything else we've got at the moment. Wide apart. Wide apart. Lower that out. Shoulders forward. Way forward. Guy, get lower. Larry, you too. Lower. You're shooting over an auto hood. This ain't just a standing position. I want your ass dropped down to knee level. Take the position. Remember, low, damn it, you're shooting over a low cover. So be rapid fire, 2 shots. Ready, fire! 2 shots rapid, ready, fire! Rack 'em open, safety on. Okay, now with the empty gun, dry fire, mirror image. This will be left-hand speed crouch. Remember, the middle finger pops the rear-mounted safety. Get the buttocks low. Damn it, Don, get low. In the ambidex position, one shot, speed crouch. Load one round. Will be one shot. Ready. Fire. Take your position now. Low, low. This is a low cover position, guys. 2 shots, rapid fire. Ready. Fire. 2 shots, rapid. Ready. Fire. Crack them open. Safety on. Okay, gentlemen, another low cover technique. This one you'd be using more likely in a containment ring, something like that, an area where you had to keep an area covered and you're in a static position. One of the reasons I like the extended magazines is not just for firepower, it gives you a nice little brace. Lay that puppy right here. Now let me see your 870 for a second. This little guy, there's not really anything to lay there except the barrel. The problem with that is if you've got any sort of rise in the cover substance itself, like the hood of a car, you're going to be getting a face full of shrapnel and your buckshot's never going to make it to the target. Your extended magazine lifts it up and over. Now, how many of you all have had your people who've been traumatized in past shotgun training, get them up here to fire at a distance like this, they go and put around, somewhere between them and the target into the ground. From a position here, it's physically impossible. Arnold Schwarzenegger cannot jerk that muzzle down from here. Now again, you're going to see, now you're going to see again some of the redirection of recoil. It'll be coming more back. The bad side of that is it kicks more, but we already know how to compensate for that with body position and advanced technique. The good news is you're reducing muzzle rise, and this means you're coming back on target faster for repeat shots. Now, if you're down behind cover like this, let's say you've been down and moving, don't try to go like this. You're going to get killed if the guy's on you. It's a dangerous situation. Bring it right up into a fire position. Boom! 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 Keep changing positions. Okay, what we're talking about here is, again, something like a containment ring, a SWAT type operation where you're on the outer perimeter, something where you're going to be there for a long time. You know where the danger is going to be, and you can expect you're going to see it before it sees you. For that, this is absolutely primo. Again, what you're going to see, there'll be a considerable backward movement, but relatively little muzzle lift. Okay, now, with a pump gun, you're going to be limited to one shot with this particular technique that I'm about to give you. It's one of the rationales of the auto. A wounded man can still function it if he can find something to brace it on. What you might want to do, since all your departments here are using pump guns for the patrol cars, just throw into the qualification, the last shot fired will be a single round, wounded officer position, one hand from the shoulder. Okay, using a brace like this. So, an auto hood or something like that. And what it would look like be this. You watching this, Max Sennett? Okay, one good sniper shot, then 2 rapid fire. Ready, fire. Okay, now put your last round in the chamber. Brace the weapon, pull it tight into your shoulder, drop the weak hand away like it's been shot. Ready, fire. Crack them open, safety's on. Next two shoot. It's going to be 1 sniper shot and 2 rapid fire. Ready, fire. Okay, one hand, pull it tight into the shoulder. Ready, fire.
Just a question, cost. Cost question.
Around police prices around $5. They retail between $5 and $6. It's a good little gun. The Benelli and the Frankie Spaz 12 are the only auto shotguns on the market today that were specifically designed for a constant diet of high base heavy loads like police buckshot and slug. All the rest were, really trap and skeet guns that can handle an occasional diet of high base loads, but when you start putting them through at the rate that you will in a SWAT operation or intensive police shotgun training, they fall apart on you. The Benelli, the original M21, and this later version, the Super 90, were designed primarily for the international military market as a military police and jungle warfare weapon. They won't even operate as a rule with the lightweight trap loads. The Frankie Spaz 12 is a great shotgun. It's a shooting little SOB, but it weighs about 10.5 pounds fully loaded. You've got to be Arnold Schwarzenegger to use it. And it's got so many safeties and selectors that it about needs an octopus. And it's, in my opinion, the world's only crew-served shotgun. I think the Benelli has much better handling and is an extremely reliable weapon. Okay, to handle this little puppy, somebody give me a couple of shells here. Put one round in the, make sure the safety's on, just like on your pump gun. One round in the chamber, press the release, flip her over, shove one in, repeat as necessary, and she's ready to go. Give it 3 any way you want, and I'll tell you what, give it 2 any way you want, and then 2 one-handed off the barricade. Watch that recoil pattern, guys. I can see y'all do that with your Remington 870. Next up.
You don't have to worry about where your thumb is.
Like all of us in the business, I follow the journals. Some of it's crap, some of it's useful. Every now and then you get something that stands out head and shoulders above the rest with the potential to save police lives and police careers. Such an article as this one, titled How Close is Too Close, written by Dennis Tueller, Tueller. It appeared in the March 1983 issue of SWAT magazine, which stands for Survival Weapons and Tactics. This landmark article, Tueller demonstrated just how rapidly a suspect with a contact weapon, such as a knife or a club, could close what previously was believed to be intermediate distance with a police officer and execute a lethal technique.
What if someone with a knife is attacking you or threatening you with a knife, club, tire iron, baseball bat, axe handle, but he's a good distance away. He's across the room, 15, 20, 30 feet away, what most of us would presume was out of the danger zone. We'd have plenty of time to draw our pistol and engage. So we tried that. We set up some demonstrations and had some officers of different sizes and heights and weights run 7 yards, starting from a dead stop, and we timed it. And the timing came out to be about 1.5 seconds, as you'll see here. Knives are a tremendously dangerous implement, and we sometimes forget that when we're doing firearms training and concern ourselves with this business of shooting the man with the gun.
But again, you need to have training that combines with aspects of crisis intervention. The gun is not a universal tool. It's a very limited threat management tool, and it functions only at the highest and the narrowest band on the whole spectrum. When the primary hand begins to cramp, it's no trick at all to simply change hands and alleviate 80 to 90% of the cramping. Okay, the complaint you'll get from some of your students is going to be, but if the shells are stuck, I could cut my hand. Well, consider the alternative. Well, it's no trick with an auto pistol to keep it in the primary hand. Indeed, you should, to avoid fumbling and overhandling. That's because all the weak hand has to do is take one relatively large object and insert it into one relatively large receptacle. But what you've got to do with a speed loader, gentlemen, is insert 6 tiny cylindrical objects into 6 exactly sized holes. And that's sort of like doing a dexterity test, you know, for your job capability function. So, knuckle space barricade. Now with the deactivated SIG, if the left eye happened to be dominant, this much brain would be exposed. Conventional technique, right eye dominant, this much would be exposed. But now with the turn of the head, I pivot in behind cover. I have you, and you have very little of me. Okay, now don't try to do it like this, coming back, or you know, you're going to lose control of the muzzle. What you're doing here, the rear hand comes forward first. It's 1, 2, 3. What you're doing here, again, we've got to control that massive recoil, so we're going to make the lower legs become a spring system. Feet go as wide apart as they possibly can. You want to get the buttocks as close as you can to knee level. Shoulders have got to be well forward. You try to do this one sitting upright, fellas, you're going for a fast ride. Better hope you got a single-shot shotgun. If you get your full-auto Daewoo assault shotgun, your field of fire is going to be about like a rainbow. And I don't want to be on that particular range when you all do that. With the shoulders forward.
The good. The great. The very best. What separates the good shooters from the very best? What makes a national champion? A repeat winner? A shooter who pulls it all together consistently to be in the running almost every time he or she steps to the line? Hello, I'm Lenny McGill. Over the past 10 years, I've shot, attended, and videotaped hundreds of stages of fire. More importantly, I've watched literally thousands of hours of videotape of the best IPSC shooters to ever live. I've talked with and interviewed the world's greatest competition shooters, and I've come to the realization that IPSC competition shooting is not a sport of seconds, but fractions of a second. Now, I know that may sound like a cliche, but hear me out. The top shooters in the sport do everything a little bit faster, a little bit more accurately, with a little bit less movement than the rest of the pack. And when you extrapolate that over 3, 5, or 12 stages of fire, what you get is a rather large difference. The purpose of this video is to point out and illustrate the techniques that are used by the world's greatest shooters as they go through various stages of fire. Assisting me in this effort is Brian Enos, a top competition shooter in his own right, but more importantly, a student of the sport of IPSC. Enos has trained side by side with other top shooters, including Rob Latham and Doug Koenig. He'll help analyze some of the footage you'll see of the world's best shooters. And speaking of these shooters, in this program, we'll look at and analyze the techniques and styles of Rob Latham, USPSA Nationals champion, World IPSC champion, NRA Bianchi Cup winner, overall one of the greatest shooters to ever live. Jerry Barnhart, USPSA Nationals champion, Steel Challenge champion, World Shoot-Off champion, and one of the winningest shooters over the past 8 years. Doug Koenig, IPSC World champion, NRA Bianchi Cup champion, and Masters 3-gun champion. Matt McLaren, USPSA's national champion and World IPSC champion. Todd Jarrett, USPSA Nationals champion. And Kippy Boykin, USPSA Women's champion, along with many other shooters who have helped make this program possible. We'll look at and analyze the top shooters and find out what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. Welcome to IPSC Secrets. John Bianchi is the most recognized personality in the firearms industry. Known internationally as the father of the modern holster and the master of concealment, John Bianchi is responsible for the design and production of an incredible 20 million holsters, belts, and accessories during his 40-year career. In the early 1950s, John Bianchi started as a police officer, making holsters in his garage. His business expanded rapidly, and by the mid-1970s, Bianchi International had grown to be the industry leader, occupying this 60,000 square foot facility in Temecula, California. John Bianchi's numerous achievements include authoring the industry bestseller, Blue Steel and Gun Leather, creating an international pistol shooting competition, the Bianchi Cup, as well as over 200 patents, trademarks, and copyrights. His holsters were used in virtually all Hollywood movie productions from the mid-1960s. But perhaps his most important contribution is the design, development, and manufacture of the M12 military holster, currently in use by the United States and NATO forces worldwide. John Bianchi sold Bianchi International in 1989 and now personally handcrafts custom Western gun belts that are considered to be works of art that are truly becoming collector's items. These are available through his new custom shop, Frontier Gun Leather. This program is Volume 3 of a 3-part series featuring the artistry and secrets of advanced Western holster making. John Bianchi shares with you more than 40 years of experience in working with leather, tools, and supplies to make the highest quality holsters and belts in the world. The information you're about to see can be applied to all leather-making projects with particular emphasis on holsters and belts. Now, here's John Bianchi. Masaad Ayoob is recognized worldwide as an expert in the use of firearms for self-defense and law enforcement applications. He is the author of several books and hundreds of magazine articles dealing with the use of lethal force. He is a firearms tactics instructor for law enforcement and civilians and the founder of LFI, the Lethal Force Institute. As a champion pistol competitor, Masaad Ayoob has been a member of several all-state and state champion handgun teams in both bullseye and combat-style shooting. And he is an expert witness who appears in the defense of police officers involved in shootings. To say the least, Masaad Ayoob is uniquely qualified to present the material you are about to see. The purpose of this video is to help you become better skilled in the use and handling of firearms. In particular, using a handgun for self-defense. After all, handguns were invented for just one thing: to give the owner the ability to carry an effective self-defense weapon on his or her person at all times. In this program, we're going to explore the 3 basic principles involved in learning how to use a handgun effectively for self-defense. Weapon presentation, or the act of presenting the pistol to the target you wish to shoot, and doing so that the sights are lined up with your intended target. Trigger pull, which is the actual motion of pulling the trigger while at the same time maintaining your proper sight alignment. And drawing the handgun from a holster or other method of carry, with a major emphasis on safety, speed, and efficiency. Plus, we'll tie all 3 of these elements together in a 9-minute workout that is guaranteed to improve your handling skills, your accuracy, and your overall ability to shoot a handgun with confidence. I'm Lenny McGill. Stay with me as we begin Handgun Workout Dry Fire Training System. The revolver has been around for more than 150 years, and it's still considered to be one of the most reliable defensive handguns one could own. Mastering revolvers. Right here.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land, and sea. first to fight for right and freedom and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. On November 10th, 1775, a few good men got together, and they were called Marines.
Since 1775, the tradition of the United States Marine Corps has grown and developed. Each successive generation of Marines inherits the tradition and pride the Corps has won through sacrifice, honor, and duty to the Corps and country. The battle color ceremony you're about to see reflects those qualities that are truly and uniquely Marine. The battle color ceremony consists of 3 elements which set it apart from all other ceremonies of the Marine Corps: the Drum and Bugle Corps, the Silent Drill Team, and the battle colors. From the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, California, let's get started with the Drum and Bugle Corps. Cowboy action shooting has grown dramatically in the past 15 years. Started by a group of competition shooters who became disenchanted with the equipment race of IPSC competition, the Wild Bunch, as they are known, formulated a shooting sport that emphasized friendly competition, shooting skill, cowboy-era firearms, and authentic clothing. The first end-of-trail competition in 1980 attracted just 72 shooters, but by 1995, more than 325 competitors from all over the world and over 10,000 spectators enjoyed this 3-day event. The governing body for cowboy action shooting competition is SAS, which stands for Single Action Shooting Society. They have close to 10,000 members in every state of the Union, plus 11 foreign countries. For more information on membership and competition, contact SAS at the address on your television screen.
We'll go again.
Larry Cohen, aka the Durango Kid, is an accomplished cowboy action shooter. With roots in Steel Challenge speed competition and IPSC-style shooting, he made a natural transition to the cowboy action sport. He won the End of Trail Championship in 1991 and has been a consistent champion at numerous other matches, including the Durango Junction High Country Shootout that he and his wife Shireen, also known as 6 Gun Red, put on every fall. And there's an address to write to for more information. The Durango Kid is an excellent pistol and rifle shooter. But when it comes to the cowboy-era pump-action shotgun, simply put, he's the best in the world.
That's it.
Woo! This program is designed to give you a better understanding of the shooting techniques used to become a more skilled cowboy action shooter. It is our hope that by watching this program, you will improve your overall shooting skills. Now, here's the Durango Kid with speed and accuracy. Cowboy action style. There are many reasons for owning a handgun, whether it's for competition, self-defense, hunting, or just plinking. One common denominator that all handgun owners share is a quest for accuracy. There's nothing quite like shooting an extremely accurate handgun. Now, I believe that all high-quality, name-brand handguns are inherently accurate from the factory. The key is understanding how to tune the handgun, the ammo you wish to shoot, the conditions in which you're going to shoot, and the intended purpose. And that's what this program's all about, helping you get the most accuracy from your handguns. I'm Lenny McGill. Welcome to Sighting in Handguns. In 1950, Jim Clark Sr. founded his business on a simple philosophy: to improve the accuracy and reliability of Ruger 22 semi-automatic pistols and 1911 style handguns. He pioneered and perfected the production and distribution of a 1911 style handgun that feeds and shoots the .38 Special cartridge. That's right, I said the .38 Special cartridge, a rimmed case. Jim Clark Sr. is much more than just a gunsmith. He's an inventor and innovator, as well as a champion competition shooter, becoming the first civilian to ever win the NRA Bullseye Championship. Today, more than 45 years later, Clark Custom Guns is one of the premier custom gunsmith shops in the world. Their work now includes custom services for a wide variety of firearms, including Ruger 22 pistols and 10/22 rifles, revolvers, 1911 style handguns for competition and self-defense, as well as custom work for shotguns and rifles. They also manufacture and sell high-quality, high-tolerance parts for 1911 framed handguns, Ruger Mark II pistols, and 10/22 rifles, along with complete drop-in barreled actions for Ruger 10/22 rifles. Jim Clark Jr. and his sister Kay Clark Michalik have followed the path trailblazed by their father. Jim is possibly the greatest three-gun competition shooter to ever live, winning the Soldier of Fortune three-gun World Championship 4 different times. Kay is the World IPSC Champion and three-time USPSA Nationals Champion. They're joined by Jerry Michalik, internationally known as the fastest revolver shooter in the world. Together, they oversee the operation and management of Clark Custom Guns and their 150-acre shooting facility known as the Shootout, located in Princeton, Louisiana. This facility offers complete firearms training for rifle, pistol, and shotgun. Jim Clark Sr., Jim Clark Jr., Kay Clark Michalik, and Jerry Michalik are some of the greatest minds in the gunsmithing and competition shooting industries. With over 100 years of collective experience, a complete machine shop, a 150-acre full facility range, instruction classes for rifle, pistol, and shotgun for competition and self-defense, and complete gunsmithing services to increase accuracy and reliability in your firearms, Clark Custom Guns is uniquely qualified to present the information you're about to see. awesome speed. There's nothing quite like it. Nothing so impressive as when man and his weapon become one. What's it take to develop this skill? For you to be fast on the draw and fast from shot to shot? Well, that's what this program is all about. We'll look at some of the fastest shooters in the world, compare their equipment, their techniques and methods, and talk with them one-on-one, all in an effort to find out how to shoot fast and accurately. Hi, I'm Lenny McGill. Shooting fast is easy. It's when you have to shoot fast and accurately that it becomes a lot more difficult. Now, I believe there are certain things you can do and concentrate on that are going to help you shoot faster. And that's what this program is all about.